Sodom and Gomorrah. God's wrath on a sinful nation. I'm going to try to stay away from the similarities of what's going on in the world today and the biblical events that happened here 4,000 years ago. So let's get into it. Now, before I get started, I want to say these places that I'm showing you here on this video are the traditional sites of these cities. I know that recently we've heard from a couple different groups of people that the site of Sodom and Gomorrah might be further north of the Dead Sea, or some even actually think it's in Jordan. I believe these are the sites because the evidence speaks for itself. Then add in account the anomalies of these structures, these formations that are around here. They stick out like a sore thumb. All of that together leads me to believe, and much more, that we are in Sodom and Gomorrah. When you're here at this place, at these sites where Sodom and Gomorrah happened 4,000 years ago, it is impossible to disconnect between the wrath of God and what's to come. Josephus, which was a Jewish historian, he was writing during the time of Yeshua, and he said that during his time, over 2,000 years ago, you could still see the buildings of Sodom and Gomorrah clearly. That was his words, clearly. All through these areas, you can still see today a lot of brimstone. The brimstone that's found here is unique to this area and not found anywhere else in the world. Now let's mention brimstone, I'm sure we all know, is just an older archaic word for sulfur. What makes these sulfur balls so special and unique, and the only place in the world you can find them here, is they're 90% pure. They're so pure you can take one and light it with a match. Usually anywhere around the world you find sulfur, including in this area other than these exact spots of Sodom and Gomorrah, sulfur comes in about 40 to 50% from nature, purity. The only way to make sulfur this pure is through extreme, tremendous heat. Also, another important piece of the puzzle that strengthens the fact that this is Sodom and Gomorrah is that around here in the surrounding areas, they have found millions of graves, which proves that there was a large civilization that lived in this area a long time ago. Now, these two cities are separated by a short distance. We're here at Gomorrah right now, and Sodom is a little further south. And these sulfur balls that we've been talking about, they're not found even in the distance between the two cities or anywhere else outside of these specific areas. Another interesting piece of evidence is all these interesting structures you can see behind me and you can see in this video. They're all made of calcium sulfate, which, by the way, is what limestone and sulfur turns into, guess what, when it's exposed to extreme heat. Now, here Gomorrah is right down by Masada. And as you walk around here and you look at these places, you can really feel how it's all been scorched, it's all been burnt. Anytime you touch anything, it's just ash and it crumbles in your hands.
We wanted to come closer and show you those amazing, strange structures, how when you touch them, they just crumble in your hands like an ash, as if it was scorched. I'm amazed this structure is still standing as it is. It just, like, I don't know how it still stands. It's so fragile, look, it's like an ash. Even when you walk on it, it's all, you like sink inside because it's all soft. It's not a real, like, stone. It's kind of very softy. if I say it right.
Now, I don't have to tell you when you're looking at this video, what you see here, it's just not how nature works. It's not, you can tell it's something man-made. There's not, nature doesn't do right angles. All these structures, you can see anything that looks like palaces and homes and pyramids, even sphinxes. In 2 Peter 2:6 it says, let me read, "And turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an example unto those after should live ungodly." I mean, think about it. This place is just a monument and proof of what happens to the people when we don't follow God's ways. I said we aren't going to get into that part of it. I'm going to try to stay away from that. So I'll let you reflect on that on your own, looking at Sodom and Gomorrah and what's going on today in the world. We know that God used fire and brimstones to destroy these cities. Let's talk about the fallout from that until today. We still see the evidence. And it's not just these structures and everything we see here. In Genesis 13:10 it says, "And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar." Now, after reading that, we get a clear picture that this land right through here, this valley, was full of life, not dead like it is now, with water and green vegetation everywhere, with a great river running through here, flourishing this area. It almost refers to, it sounds like, the Garden of Eden maybe. But after the wrath of God on Sodom and Gomorrah over 4,000 years ago, this land never recovered until today. It's still a wasteland where nothing grows, no one lives, nothing. In Ezekiel 47:9, we read where God speaks about when Yeshua comes back after the tribulation, that God will cause a massive river to flow through this land right here, this place, and returning it to its former glory, what it used to be before God put his wrath on Sodom and Gomorrah and just scorched this land. Well, we all know Abraham's part of this story, where he had his conversation with God about the 50 or the 40, and he got down to if could only find 10 righteous men in Sodom and Gomorrah, could he save it? So after the two angels took Lot and his wife and his two daughters out of the city so that they would not be swept away from the destruction, Lot went south to Zoar. And when daylight came in the morning, he started heading for the hills. Now we know, by reading, we're sure we all remember that the angels told him to get out of the valley, to go, which means go up, and he really didn't listen. He was walking through the valley, but at the morning when they started witnessing what was happening, they quickly started going up. So from here we remember that Lot's wife from behind him had stopped and looked back. Then she was turned into a pillar of salt. Here today is what's traditionally called Lot's wife. If it is or it isn't, I believe it's irrelevant. But what it is a great reminder of this biblical event. As we know, Sodom and Gomorrah is used many times in the Bible to explain and use as an example as for God's wrath against the wicked. Well, folks, I don't know about you, but this was a powerful and spiritual experience for me. I pray I was able to convey it through the camera. We can all easily see that the world we live in today is so similar to the stories that we read of Sodom and Gomorrah before its destruction from the wrath of God. Well, this video was a blessing to make, and thank you. Until next time, God bless.